All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today's video is going to be talking about the latest news with Marvel Rivals. Now, Marvel Rivals has been the biggest success for Marvel games probably since the early launch of Spider-Man, and because of that, there is a lot of conversation going around about the future of the game. Now, that isn't to say there's uncertainty around the future of the game, just more so what is going to happen, what characters are coming, and how many we can expect. We're currently in the midst of season one with 4 characters coming, 2 at the start, 2 in the middle, and those being the Fantastic Four alongside a couple of maps. Now, they have said that this is kind of a double size season, and any season going forward won't be this size. So the question is, what should we expect? What kind of cadence should we expect? And kind of just some other things going on with the game. Now, lucky enough, the game director did do an interview with Metro. We're going to kind of cherry pick some of the points here and talk about them because there is a lot of good information here. And there's a lot of things that I think are kind of interesting to the community. So let's get the video started. Let's talk about some of the things that are talked about in this interview. So the first thing I want to talk about is this right here. Now, this is talking about role lock. They say you've been pretty clear about not wanting to enforce role lock prior to release. That said, the community conversation around the topic right now is really loud. If that conversation becomes loud enough, would you be willing to change your stance? The answer is yeah. So we totally get the community is discussing role lock and role queue. At its core, it's really about the game balance. So what we want to offer is more lineup or more team comp possibilities through our hero design and our team up mechanic. So we've taken a little bit more of a Marvel inspired approach. It's all about giving the players the freedom to experiment and find their unique strategies, as we've seen in many games and streams. Post launch, people have been exploring an indefinite amount of team compositions, and we're excited about what's coming. We believe no role queue will lead to a richer gaming experience for everyone. And this kind of is seen lately. I mean, I can't imagine this conversation took place within the last week because it seems like the community at large has kind of moved on from the conversation of role lock and role queue. This definitely was a conversation right after the game came out, and there was a lot of people kind of upset because people were insta locking DPS and not doing what they could be doing to help the team. And that's not to say that's kind of solved now, but I definitely feel like that conversation is not as loud as it was. All right, so the next one is one of the biggest topics that was kind of talked about when the game released, which was the amount of duelists on the roster. In the question here, they say, why did the game launch with such a disproportionate amount of duelists? Do you prefer to take a hero you want to make and decide the role after, or is the wider roster composition important? Do you plan to try and make the roles more even, or do you not think it matters? The answer is, our choice of heroes will be guided by the overall gameplay experience or theme that we want to create for each season. So it'll revolve around the season, and right now at post-launch, we have 8 Vanguards and 7 Strategists at launch. The team believes that it gives the players a solid variety for tactical matchups or team composition. Having more duelists at the moment will definitely enhance the duelist experience, letting players dive a little bit deeper into that aspect. So lastly, big shout out to our community, as we've seen a lot of feedback as we look to future seasons, starting with season 1. We would definitely keep this in mind when introducing new heroes, and we would want to make sure that everyone feels heard and excited. Now, I mean, yeah, I think this is one of those things where obviously Duelist gets a lot of love, and that's because I think a lot of Marvel characters lends itself well to the Duelist role. But I think in terms of what you can do, I think you got to take creative risks, you got to take creative chances, and if you're able to move characters to different roles, I think you got to at least try. I don't think we want to see a game where Duelist has, 25 different characters and Vanguards and Strategists are both at 12, for example, right? I don't think that would lend itself to a fun experience. And I think stuff like that can really start to impede your ability to kind of coordinate roles and which players and which roles that those players take within your team. And that can really start to hamper the experience. And usually that's when we get the conversations about role queue and role lock and the rest of that. Now, here's the big thing that I think people are talking about right now is this might be a little cheeky of me, but have you spoken about the cadence players can expect new heroes to join the game? Are you aiming for a couple a year or as many as possible? The answer is every season will be rolling out fresh seasonal stories, new maps, and new heroes. We'll actually be breaking down each season into 2 halves. The length of one season is 3 months, and for each half of the season, we'll introduce a new hero. We eventually just want to continue to enhance the experience, keep everyone excited in our community. Now, this is actually kind of big, right? Because a lot of the time, you don't really get a lot of characters with these games. You get a couple per year, maybe you get 1 or 2 maps. it really does feel like when you play an FPS game or like a live service shooter game, you get content, but a lot of that content is more skins than would be characters or maps, for example, as someone who's played like Rainbow Six. And I've seen people compare this to Overwatch and their cadence of release. So this goes to show that there is quite a team behind this game that has a desire to push out new content. And one of the things that came up in my stream is what kind of characters do you do with this kind of cadence, right? If you're pushing out, one character every half season, do you do all the big heavy hitters right away, right? Do you run down the list of all the characters people want? Or do you sprinkle in some of the kind of lesser known characters, right? To stretch that out. And I think people fall on different sides of this. And I think people, want their big characters, right? They want their Gambits, for example, or their Cyclops when it comes to X-Men or the Jean Greys. But also, how do you give that to the players and kind of make sure that they're coming back for more, right? It's a very delicate conversation. And if you don't give players the big ones, the big heavy hitters, and you go with, say a Suicide Squad approach, or you go with a Marvel's Avengers approach, you can really start to alienate your player base a little bit because people may not want to play as, Dupe, for example, right? I'm sure someone is going to be in the comments saying, I want to play as Dupe. But like, someone doesn't want to play as Dupe. They want to play as Daredevil, right? They don't want to play as Dupe. They want to play as Ghost Rider. So, how do you kind of balance out, the 50, 60 big characters that people want? And then how do you balance that out with maybe some of the other lesser known characters that maybe you can do a really cool twist on, but don't really have the pull and the name of some of these other characters? I think that'll be an interesting thing to kind of watch as the year goes on. And it'll be really interesting to see how NetEase kind of balances the community wish list with maybe what Marvel wants them to do or has asked them to do versus maybe what they want to do because they have a really cool idea for a character, right? Like all these different competing stakeholders really will drive home, kind of the next year for this game. And I think, if there's anything to say is that, based off what they've done already, if they do pick a lesser known character, we look at Jeff, for example, right? There really is the template there to trust them to make a really cool, fun character that can really capture the audience. And I think, if anything, I don't mind them doing that. And I really am excited for what they have, kind of coming up here. So, with that being said, guys, that is the end of the video today. I just want to talk about this a little bit because this is a big hot button topic in the community. And if you guys want more Marvel Rivals news, coverage, opinions, gameplay, and streams or more, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a nice little comment, and I'll see you guys next time here. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or night. Make sure you guys take care and take care of yourselves. Later, guys.